have two colorways of these earrings on today. One you are going to get in the February subscription if you get the kit box, and that is this beautiful silver and gold version. And then I have one over here that has a little bit more contrast to it. These are earrings that you can make with two different components that we're putting together and adding a little crystal at the bottom. Check out the material list below and we'll get started. If you do subscribe to our kit subscription, you're going to get this colorway in the box. So you're going to make a silver and gold pair of earrings, which was my original colorway for this. But for the video, I'm going to show you how to make it in some different colors that stand out a little bit more against each other so that it's easier to see what I'm doing. So if you like this colorway, you can certainly purchase these items. We will have that listed below in the description. But if you're getting if you're getting the Best Bead Box Kit Edition, you will already be getting the supplies for this really beautiful silver and gold version. So we're going to start out with our SuperDuos. And I have my size 10 needle here. You can use whatever size needle works for you. I like size 10 whenever I can use it because it's just a little bit bigger and it's easier for me. Kind of like the like those big thick crayons for kids. It's my size 10 needle. It's just like my comfort zone. So I'm going to pick up 5 SuperDuos. And then I'm going to take my needle or take my thread here and do just a little overhand knot and pull those 5 SuperDuos together so my knot falls in between a couple of those SuperDuos. And then if I tie this knot once more, that will make it more secure so that I don't have to worry about my little circle or star here of SuperDuos coming undone as I work. I'm going to go through the bottom hole here of one of my SuperDuos. And now what I'm going to do is make like a little U-turn, and instead of going through the bottom holes or the inside holes here, I'm going to start using the outside holes. So the outside holes are just the ones that are farthest on the outside of our project, and we've not used those yet. So I'm going to go up through that open hole of my SuperDuo. And now I'm going to start picking up my StormDuos and adding those in between my SuperDuos. The StormDuos do have different sides to them. And when I picked my colors, I didn't think about this being on a white mat. So the StormDuo here, you can see on my finger, it's got these little points at the end, and the point will go to the right or to the left. And as the point goes to the right or the left, you have here on the bottom here, you can see my point goes to the left, and I have this rounded part, and then which I kind of call the belly, the belly of the StormDuo. And then at the top here, my point here goes to the right, and then it has sort of like the neck here. So if you look at it, like it almost looks like a little bird. Up here you have the beak and the neck, and down here you have the belly and the little tail. So that's how I like to think about it. And you are going to have to pick them up in a certain way, so we will make sure that we get that correct as we go around here. So now to pick up the StormDuos, I'm going to pick them up in pairs, and I want what we can think of as like the neck of the bird to touch. So it's coming out of my StormDuo here. I'm going to pick up one of my StormDuos, and I'm going to pick it up going from that like sort of belly side through the neck side. So I'm picking it up just like that. And then as I let it fall down, I'm going to pick up another StormDuo, but I'm going through the side here that has the neck. So you can see when I lay them next to each other, it kind of forms like a little tulip. So the bottoms come together here, and then they're like two little birdies looking away from each other. So that's how we want to pick them up every time we pick up a pair between our SuperDuos. And now pass through the next SuperDuo through that open hole there on the outside. And we're going to pick up a couple more StormDuos, and we're going to pick up a pair of StormDuos in between all of these SuperDuos. So I'm picking up my pair. Oops, I did it wrong. So I'm picking up my pair, and if you pick it up incorrectly, just take it off and pick it up again. Picking it up so that the two little birdies are looking away from each other, and it forms like a tulip shape when it's together. And once you do it a couple times, you'll kind of get the groove and you'll see exactly how to pick it up. Okay, and I have one more pair here. Oh, poured those beads out perfectly. Didn't even count those. Okay, and through my last StormDuo here, so I'm going through my my SuperDuos and StormDuos. If I said either one incorrectly up to this point, I apologize. There's both S duos. So I'm sure that I'm going to make a slip here and there. So now I've got to the point where I've added all my pairs of StormDuos around my inside circle of SuperDuos. So now what we're going to do is start working on embellishing this and working on another layer of beads here. That's going to be some seed beads. I'm going to pass through the inside holes here of my two StormDuos, and I'm going to go through the next SuperDuo and through my next StormDuos. And the only reason why I'm doing this is just to pull everything a little bit tighter, because I like to make sure that I don't have any slack in my thread. I don't want the design to be loose. So sometimes going through a couple extra beads, even if you don't need to for the pattern, just kind of helps cinch everything together. So here I am coming out through this bottom or inside hole of my StormDuo. So now I'm going to start working with my 11-Os and pick up 3 11-Os. And on that same StormDuo, I'm going to go up through that top hole. So I'm going through like the top of the little bird here. And then I'm going to pick up an 8-O and go through my next StormDuo. Now coming out the side of the StormDuo, I'm going to pick up another 3 of my seed beads, my 11-Os, and I'm going to go through that bottom inside hole of the StormDuo. So I've just added a border of seed beads to this pair of StormDuos. I'm going to pass through the next StormDuo in that pair, and I'm going to go through the first 11-O seed bead, which is the one farthest inward in my design. I'm going to pick up another 2 seed beads, and now I'm going to move over to my next pair of StormDuos. I'm going to go through that outside hole. So my outside hole here of my StormDuo, pick up an 8-O. I'm go through the next StormDuo, and now I'm going to pick up 3 of my 11 O's and go through that bottom hole of the same StormDuo. Go through to the next StormDuo, and we're going to pass up through that 11O that we shared between the 2 pairs here of StormDuos and the next 2 seed beads. So all 3 seed beads on the side here of my StormDuo. And I'm going to go through the StormDuo, my 8O seed bead, my StormDuo, all 3 beads, all 3 11 O's here on the side. And now I'm going to go through the bottom of my next pair of StormDuos. Through one and then through the other. And here I'm going to repeat this and add the same beads on this little tulip or pair of StormDuos. So I'm picking up 3 of my seed beads, going through the top hole here of my StormDuo, picking up an 8O, going through the next StormDuo, and picking up 2 of my 11 O's, and we're going to go down through just that 11O farthest inside the design, closest to the bottom of our StormDuo, and it's the same seed bead that we shared in the previous set. And then we're going to go through our StormDuos. And now we're going to go up through that first seed bead. And we're going to continue here like we did on this section here, a couple back. And we're going to continue adding the border of seed beads to the next couple tulips. So you're going to either add it like you're either going to add your beads as you did in this tulip here or in this tulip here, because you're kind of making sort of like this figure 8 around your project here. But we have 2 more tulips to do, so I'm going to go ahead and continue with my 2 tulips here, and when I get around here towards the end, I'll show you how to finish it. So I've now got to my last tulip. So since the last clip that I recorded, I only did this 1 tulip, and I did this 1 tulip using the same pattern that I did 2 tulips back. So it was the second tulip that we did together. Now, this last tulip here is going to be just slightly different because we already have some seed beads on the side. So coming out of the bottom of my tulip, and I'm coming out here on the right side, I'm going to pass up through the most inside 11O here and pick up 2 more seed beads. And then I'm going to go through the top hole of my StormDuo, pick up another 8O, and all this should be familiar to you now. Adding that 8O in there, and then I'm going to pick up 2 more seed beads, my 11Os, and go down through that 111O at the base of the tulips that we're sharing. And so once you complete that, you should have a nice little design like this. We've got your SuperDuos in the middle, our StormDuos forming little tulip shapes, and then we've got a nice border of some 11Os and 8Os in between our tulips. So go ahead and get to this point, and then we'll move on and we'll talk about how to do the top part here, connect them, and then of course add a little add a little crystal down at the bottom if you want to do that as well. Our component that we're going to make now is this top component here, which is going to be smaller and sit on top of the component here that we just made. The component that we just made, we're going to just leave these tail threads because we're going to use those later to attach to the other piece or to add our crystal. So you can just leave those threads hanging out for now. I'm going to start by picking up 5 of my SuperDuos. And if I hesitate over the names, because I've been getting tongue-tied with all these S names and duo names. So I've got 5 SuperDuos, and I'm going to tie them into a circle. So I'm starting exactly the same way that I did on the first component, and doing 2 little overhand knots here to hold this and keep this in place. And I'm going to pass through just 1 or 2 SuperDuos here. And now I'm going to create a border with the seed beads, very similar to what I did here in between my tulip patterns here with my StormDuos, but a little bit different just because it's different count. So I'll do my best here and follow along. I'm going to pick up 2 seed beads, and I'm using my 11-ohs. And then I'm going to go on the same SuperDuo. I'm going to go through that top outside hole. And then I'm going to pick up 2 more seed beads and go down or go through the bottom hole of that same SuperDuo. So now coming out on the right, I'm going to go up through just that first seed bead. And the bottom seed beads here in this group of 2 that we're adding, the bottom one, or the one that's closest to the inside of our star, we're going to share that one between our SuperDuos. So when I refer to the one that we're sharing, it's just this bottom one that's closest to the inside. So I'm going up through that one that's shared, picking up 1 seed bead, and then going through the top hole of our next SuperDuo, picking up 2 seed beads and going through the bottom hole of that same SuperDuo, going up through both seed beads on the other side of the same SuperDuo, through the SuperDuo, and down through both seed beads. Pass through the bottom or inside hole here of my next SuperDuo, pick up 2 seed beads and go through the SuperDuo, through that top hole, pick up 1 seed bead and go down through that 11-oh that we're sharing. Go through the bottom of your SuperDuo and up through the 11-oh that we're sharing. Pick up 1 seed bead and go through the top hole of the next SuperDuo. And now on this side, we need 2 seed beads, and we'll go through the bottom hole there of our SuperDuo, up through the seed bead that we're sharing, through the seed bead, SuperDuo, and the 2 seed beads, and we're going to go through the bottom of our next SuperDuo, and up through the seed bead here that we're sharing, pick up 1 seed bead through the top hole here of our SuperDuo, and 1 more seed bead, and down through that seed bead that we're sharing. So you may need to go back and rewatch that. It can get a little dizzy as you go, but just go slowly, and you'll get it. It's very similar to, it's pretty much the same pattern as what we did when we added our seed beads here, our 11-Os, but of course we have some different beads, so it looks a little bit different. So go ahead and get to this point here, and then we'll continue. When you get to this part here where you are finished, it may look a little bit wonky, and that's okay. This next part, as we add more 11-Os around, it will kind of straighten itself out. So I'm coming out through one of these shared 11-Os, and I'm going to go through the bottom of my SuperDuo, and on the other side here of my SuperDuo, I'm going to go up through both seed beads, the one that's shared and the one above that. I'm going to pick up 2 more seed beads. Actually, I'm going to pick up 3 seed beads, and then I'm going to go around the tip of my SuperDuo and go down through the seed bead on the other side. I'm going to pick up one of my 8-Os, and I'm going to go through the same seed bead on the opposite side here. So I'm just skipping over the seed bead in the center, the seed bead that's shared. So I'm skipping over that shared seed bead. And I'm going to pick up 3 more seed beads and go down the other side here of my SuperDuo through just that first seed bead. Pick up an 8-O, again skipping over the shared seed bead, and go up through the next 11-O. Pick up 3 seed beads and down the seed bead here on the other side. So I'm just adding those 3 seed beads to the end of all of my SuperDuos. And picking up this 8-O, going through my next seed bead here, picking up another 3, down the other side of my SuperDuo, picking up an 8-O through my next seed bead, picking up 3 seed beads around the tip of my SuperDuo through my next seed bead, and pick up 1 more 8-O. And now here I'm going to go through the same seed bead that I would, that seed bead here that isn't shared, and of course now I'm coming out here between the first 3 seed beads that I picked up in this row and the seed bead here where I started. So that is how we are going to create this top little star for our component here. Now, as you work with it, you'll see that the inside of your StormDuos here, they don't touch exactly. They probably aren't touching because the 11-O sort of forced them apart. So what we can do here, now depending on what beads you're using, if you're using some 11-Os that do tend to fit together a little more closely, you may not have much of a gap at the center here. It really depends on like what brand you're using. Of course, I'm using Miyuki, so they're pretty consistent. And if you're using Miyuki as well, it'll probably look very much like mine. But if you're using some other kind of bead, then you may not have as much of a spread. Or if you're using Tohos, you may have more of a spread because they're a little bit wider. So what I'm going to do here is go through my SuperDuo here. And this is optional. It's just up to you if you feel like you want to cover this at all in the center. And go through my SuperDuo again. I want to go through both holes here so that I'm coming out at the very center of my project through that most inside hole of my SuperDuo. And now here I can add a little bead if I want. I can add an 8/0 if I want. I can add an 11/0. I can pick up a little crystal. I'm going to add an 8/0. And now I'm going to go, you can do it a couple different ways because we have 5 beads here. There isn't a bead directly opposite of the bead that I'm coming out of. So I can actually go through, or I can go pass around the thread that's directly opposite, going between the 2 SuperDuos, if I want to make sure that I'm getting this exactly centered as best as I can. So coming out, oops. Okay, so coming out of this SuperDuo here, I can actually go around the thread path, or the bridge thread, as you would call it if you were doing brick stitch, and actually go around my thread that's going between my beads. And this can be a little bit difficult if you're a little far-sighted. But I can go around that thread, and that anchors my thread. Go back through my bead, back through that 8/0, and back through the StormDuo here on the other side. So all I'm doing is finding a couple anchor points to add that center bead. And like I said, it's optional. You don't have to do that, but I like the look of that. If you have some gaps in here, if your star here is kind of spread a little bit, or if you have some thread you want to cover up, we can add that bead there. So go ahead and get to this point here. And of course they're earrings, so if you want to go ahead and make 2, go ahead and make 2 of those and 2 of these, and then we will connect them together. Okay, now we're going to talk about connecting our pieces together. I've got quite a bit of thread here still on my needle, so I'm going to continue working with the thread that I already have. And I have one little wire guard here. I'm going to use a wire guard. You don't have to. You can create a little loop of seed beads if you want, but I like using the wire guard for this. So I just attached that center 8/0, and again, that's optional, so you don't have to do that. But I'm going to take my thread here, and I'm going to go through my SuperDuo and really just kind of go through my beads until I get to the seed beads at the tip on the outside of one of my SuperDuos. So I'm going through my SuperDuo, and then I'm going to go through some seed beads here at the end, and I want to come out through that center seed bead that's right at the tip of my SuperDuo. I'm going to pick up my forgot what this was called for a second, my wire guard through one side and go down the other. And you want to make sure that your thread is caught in the wire guard, that you don't have it hanging out the side, and go back through the 11/0. So we're just attaching this wire guard to one 11/0. And I'm going to go through again. Oops, you can see my thread actually kind of came out the side there, which I don't want. Must have pulled a little too tight. So I fixed that and go down through the other side of the wire guard. And the seed bead again. And so there is my top portion with my wire guard. And again, I still have plenty of thread. So you can either tie this off, or you can sort of weave your needle and thread through your piece until you get to the other side of your project, because here's the top where we're going to attach our earring, and directly opposite here on this 8/0 here, directly opposite of where we're working, we're going to attach the bottom section of our earring. So if you want to cut off your thread and then pick up thread down here, you can. I'm just going to weave my needle and thread through my piece until I get down there. And I'm going to follow the outside border of seed beads. I'd much rather do this than cut off thread and have to tie it off and add more thread, because I don't like having a ton of knots in my project if I can help it. So I'm just following this outside path of seed beads until I pass through my 8/0 that's at the bottom here, directly opposite where I added my wire guard. So here now, I'm just going to pick where I want to attach my bottom section. If you're going to put a crystal on the bottom, I would, wherever you've got your extra thread, I would put that towards the bottom so that you can use that to add your crystal, and you already have your thread as close to where you want it to be, or as close to where it needs to be. So coming out here, and I've got my thread that's already, that's my loose thread here hanging towards the bottom. I have my top and my bottom aligned now. I'm going to attach these two sections here, this 8/0 and this 8/0 here. So I'm going to pick up one 8/0 and go through the 8/0 on my bottom piece, pick up another 8/0, and then go back through the 8/0 on the top piece. So just making a little square of 8/0s. And I'm going to go through these 8/0s a few times because I want this connection point to be strong. And I also want to make sure that it looks right. And sometimes the first pass through looks a little wonky. So if I go through a couple more times, I can cinch that, I can pull it tight and get that to look the way that I want it to. So now I am done using this thread, and I'm going to just tie that off. And where you tie it up is really entirely up to you. If you want to meet up with your other thread and that is still attached to your top piece, you can definitely do that and tie those off together. Oops, if you don't get them tangled first. So here I am on the back, and I'm just going to pass through a couple beads here on the back, take my two thread ends on the top piece here that I don't need anymore, and I can tie those off. Now I'd probably do a little bit neater job if I wasn't on camera, because I don't want to spend a lot of time doing this. I don't want you to have to watch me tie off thread ends for 3 hours. so we'll do that just like that. And now at the very bottom here, this second component, or the bottom component, I'm just going to choose one of my threads to add my needle to, and then I will add a crystal. Now at this point, you can just be done. If you're not interested in adding a crystal, you can be completely done with this. If you are interested in adding a crystal, I'm going to add it right to the bottom here, centered. And I got one of these little disco balls. You can use any crystal that you want, but I thought these disco balls in this color was a really nice match for this. So depending on where your thread is coming out, you're going to just take your needle and thread and pass through your beads until you get to your 11/0 seed beads here, between your tulips at the very bottom. So I'm coming out through the 11-0 here. I'm coming out through this 11-0 here on the right, and you could use any kind of method to attach this if you want. This is just how I'm choosing to do it, but if you think of a better way, by all means. So I'm going to pick up a couple seed beads, and I'm going to go down through my crystal, and then I'm going to pick up 3 seed beads because I like when I go back up through my crystal, I like that little triangle of seed beads. So I'm going to pick up these 3 seed beads and then go back up through my crystal. As you go back up through your crystal, you'll see that your little seed beads form a little triangle. And if they don't, just kind of push them into shape. I'm going to pick up a couple more of my 11-0 seed beads and go through my 11-0s on the other side of this little section here between my tulips. And now all I'm going to do is go through these seed beads, all the seed beads here that sort of form this little, it's like a little square. And I'm just going around and go through the seed beads that you added to the bottom, all 3 seed beads here at the bottom of your crystal. And then back up your crystal and through your seed beads that you added. It's the seed beads here that you added when you picked up your crystal, and the seed beads that border your StormDuos. And once you go through those a couple times, it will get everything aligned nicely. And now at this point, I'm done with my earring and I can tie off my thread. So again, I'm just going to the back here. And I'll pass through some beads just to get to close to where my other thread end is, so I can tie that off together. So I can tie those 2 ends off together. If it's a little difficult for you to get through some of these beads, again, you can tie off your 2 ends separately. You just certainly don't have to tie them off together. But I like to do that when I can. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to get my thread ends tied off, and then I'll show you how to attach the ear wire if you're unsure, if you haven't done that before. If you have not added ear wires to the top of earrings with a wire guard before, very, very simple. All you're going to do is take your ear wire and the little end here that curls, you're going to just lift that up, slide your ear wire on, slide your wire guard on, and then you're going to close that back up. And then you are done. So here's both color versions. I am quite partial to the gold and silver one, although that would have been incredibly difficult for you to see in a video. So glad we also went with this color option here. Thank you for making it this far in the video if you have. Thank you for watching, and again, check out below for a list of materials, and if you are getting the subscription box for February, the kit one, 2025, you will get this colorway, and this colorway was just a fun one to do in the video.